Yeah, yeah.
We are the epitome of Black female love.
It's easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the calls for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the calls for us? What role does the church play in all of this stuff?
Is that we as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been doing.
Right. And guess
church, but it's the sisters in the congregation.
But it's a lot of times it is the Black women who bring us down more, or push or try to silence our voices more in the Black church.
My sisters, I say my sisters, how are you all on today? How is everyone on today? To our viewing audience, I do ask that you all let us know that you are here. Please let us know that you are here. Let us know where you're viewing us from, where you're listening from. And we are excited about this because for the summer, this is our last show before the summer break. Oh, yes. And so let us know where you're listening from so we can acknowledge you. And so let's jump in and start with you, Dr. Wallace. Where are you? We see, let's see what you got in the background. Where are you, Dr. Wallace? Just messing with me.
I am at the pre-show of the CME Church General Conference, here to be with the students that are doing their final evaluations this week and graduating on Friday. Wow. So I'm here in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. And so you are responsible. And for those who might not remember what CPE is, let the audience know what is CPE.
It is Clinical Pastoral Education. Wow. And we teach the CMEs over 5 or 6 months. We've started a intensive because more students, we had so many people wanting to take the class. So we had to figure out how we could do more students in a year rather than about 10 over 9 months. Now we do 24 over 24 months.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. How awesome. Attorney Robinson, thank you for joining us. We see that. You're here with us for a while. Hello, Valerie Bell. So good to have you with us. Come on, let us know that you're here. Marjorie Scott from McKinney, Texas. Let's see, Tawana Angela Davis, PhD, Dr. Davis. Wow, so good to have you with us on today. Let us know that you are here. Like, tag, and share. Again, this is our last show for a couple of months before we come back from our break. Dr. Bradford, what about you? How are you? How you be? Mute. You're mute. And we mute you.
You sure?
This time, okay. In a minute, I might. But go ahead. This time.
All is well on this end. We're working through traveling, doing what we do, and headed to General Conference for the AME, General Board for AME, and going into the General Conference for CME. So yeah, it's a hot season because I'm in Texas and it's over 100. Yes.
Yeah, this sun is disrespectful now.
It's very disrespectful. Yes, it is.
Hello, Natalie Davis. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Wright, how are you on today?
I am very well, suffering the verbal abuse of my co-workers here as are my sisters in loves, as I'm trying to get a little sympathy for my baby. My baby has surgery today, and she's got this great big cone on her head, and she's having a hard time. And y'all laughed, and but God don't like ugly. But I'm great.
And for our viewing audience who's not seen the bear, that they have domesticated and keep in their home. Okay, that is who and what she is calling her baby. Okay, Dr. Wright, you were saying.
Give some context, because that's not a little bear, a little dog. It's a big old bear.
It's a horse. It's a horse, and it's trying to act like a dog.
I love you too. I'm great, Dr. Burns, Dr. Bradford, Dr. Wallace. Good to see you all.
Yes, Natalie, it is a big old dog. It's a big old dog.
And so I do want to put a shout out to Renee Thompson Jones and her BTG family. Renee's on weekdays every morning with that. And this is one of the gifts that they sent to me. And I do want to put a shout out. You can find Bridging the Gap on Facebook every morning. And so I do want to do that. She's had some of her folk come our way as well at Timely Wisdom to be part of our audience. And so just thank you for that. And so now, how am I, before we introduce our guests again, this is our last show. So you all like, tag, and share this for us. But you all know that as Dr. Bradford has said, and my sisters, it's going to be so great to see my sisters in Cincinnati with us as we go into our general conference of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. And wow. And so part of the viewing audience, you all have already, kind of kept me in prayer and lifted me up. I do ask for that continuation as I am trusting and believing God. This is, when you've done all you can, right? And so I believe that God has allowed me to be authentic and transparent in this process. I believe in people. I believe that God still has great work to do for his church. And I believe that I could be one of those vessels for his work to be manifest. So you all keep us in prayer. Our elections now are about a week away. And so I am hoping and trusting, that I will be part of that number that gets elevated to the episcopacy of this church. And so just keep me in your prayers, and do hope that the next time, that I'm able to co-host on Timely Wisdom, that I'll have a different handle on my name and can continue to move forward in this spirit of sisterly love and ecumenicity. All right. So, okay, that's me, how I am, how I be. All right. So, Dr. Wallace, we have a firehouse backstage for us today. Who is it?
Firehouse. What a firehouse. Oh, I tell you, Dr. Lisa Allen McLaurin is a professor at the ITC in liturgy and worship and music. She is the author of Womanist liturgy and theology, worship. And so we're going to be talking with her. Unfortunately, she belongs to that group of red and white. However, she's still loved by me. Because
in spite of
all of that, she's loved by me. She's a phenomenal woman of God. I told her as I was reading her book, I could just hear her voice in my head, her actual voice, not just the words on the page. But that Dr. McLaurin has been at the ITC for a while. She is I don't know the chair that she holds or reigns from at the ITC. We'll have to let her tell us. But she is a musician par excellence. To hear her voice and to hear her play the ivory, you just shout. I told her if she ever have another worship service at our house, I better be invited, because it is an awesome experience. Just the experience on Facebook. So I just want to invite you to listen to a phenomenal woman of God who loves God and God's people and is looking for the church to come into the knowing and knowledge of being a social justice worship service and how we might help others in the community and the family of God. Let us welcome our guest, Dr. Lisa Dr. Lisa Allen McLaurin.
Hello, 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 hello. How's everybody?
Oh, Lord.
You all, this is a regal, sophisticated atmosphere.
And yes, it is. And hence why I did what I did. Amen.
Absolutely. Well, now you know I have love.
Robinson,
I have
you need
love
to,
for all of us.
Absolutely.
I have love for all of us. My mother, my beloved mother, right here. My beloved late mother was a Zeta, a woman,
good woman,
a woman,
good
a finer womanhood.
good woman.
And one of my sisters is an Alpha Kappa Alpha. And yeah, so I have love for us all, amen. Because at the end of the day, we all Black women, amen.
Amen.
That's
Amen.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. How you ladies doing? It's good to see you all.
It's always good to see you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Dr. McLaurin, before we jump into the questions on today, I'm sorry, we always have to ask that first question first. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Bradford.
Wallace, okay. Well, how you doing in these COVID streets?
Listen here, I'm masked. I'm vaxxed, boosted, and masked up in these COVID streets. That's how I'm doing, and I'm trying to stay out of the streets as much as possible. I told somebody, they said, what are you packing for general conference? What are you taking? I said a hazmat suit. Yeah, that's what I'm taking, a hazmat suit and some Lysol. So I'm gonna be standing. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
But doing okay, doing all right. Can't complain.
Dr. McLaurin, I know that Dr. Wallace and my sisters are ready to jump in with the questions, especially about the great work that you have penned and written. But I happened to find out some information a couple of weeks ago and was stunned around this. And I do want you to also note that in the chat, there's some of the folk that are in Bible study that you did for me. They doing their shout outs to you.
Oh, hey y'all. Hey darlings.
And so, but your husband is George Floyd's first cousin.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
He is. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so, just real quickly, I know that there's a foundation and that he set up and some other community work. Just tell our audience just a little bit about this, because as you know, George Floyd is the pandemic, right? We saw the world saw this, right?
Yeah,
because none of us could move anywhere, and we saw it over and over again. And now to know someone who, we saw it as individuals who saw a Black man, someone part of our race. I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
A Black man, a part of the race. But to only imagine, here it is, a family member.
Yeah. We were just sitting around the house, and one of Thomas's, I think his cousin, another cousin called, or his aunt, and said, are you all watching the television? Turn the television on. Turn it on. He said, what station? They said, it doesn't matter. It's on every station. And there was Perry. Well, the family called him Perry by his middle name, because his name is George Perry Floyd Jr. And my husband's uncle, George Perry Floyd Sr., was his father. He and my husband's mother were brother and sister. And they said, that's Perry being knelt on by that officer. And we watched the whole thing, the end of it play out, and just in shock, in total shock. And, after everything transpired, George died, was murdered. And then all of the press, all of the legal matters, the officer finally was arrested and brought to justice and all of that. During all of this time, my husband and his uncle, also George's uncle, Roger Floyd, said we need to do something to bring triumph in any kind of way, some triumph out of this tragedy. And to remember George and to make this a catalyst for helping the community. And so they started the George Floyd Memorial Center based in Raleigh, North Carolina. And because peers from North Carolina, they all are. And they've been doing tremendous work. Just had a golf tournament and conference in Raleigh 3 weeks ago, where people came and participated. And, you know, it was for camaraderie, but it was also to continue to bring light to the issues that are facing Black and brown people in this country, and to find ways to communicate, bridge gaps in the community, help persons who are in need, and all of those kinds of things. So they're doing tremendous work there. Wow. I'm really proud of it.
Wow. Wow.
It's awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing.
Let me say a word. I'm sorry. I meant to say there is a website. You can go to georgefloydmc.org, georgefloydmc.org, and you can see everything about the center, all the different initiatives that are there. So,
awesome. Is there a way in which our viewing audience might contribute? Yes,
it's on the website. There are donate buttons. And you can actually decide which initiative you want to support, because there are different strands of initiatives. There are, different. There's one for youth. There's one for art. And so there's several different pillars there that you can donate to.
So give our audience that website again.
Natasha, actually, Attorney Robinson put it in the chat. I was just about to thank her for it.
Great,
so she put the hyperlink in for us.
Awesome. So wonderful. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. And thank you all for your support.
Thank you for sharing the story. I know how I felt just as being part of a race. I don't want to imagine how that felt.
No, it was horrific. It was just, I mean, we were in shock for like a week. And then the aftershocks, with just all of the protests and counter protests, and then, just everything that was going on. And then one of the most emotional experiences was when the officer was found guilty. That was just so overwhelming. Yeah.
My God.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And even though we are grateful for the semblance of justice in that, it doesn't in any way, form or fashion, assist in processing what he did.
No, I mean, and really, as one of my colleagues said, it's really not justice, because justice would be a life,
right?
But it is some kind of it's some kind of punishment, I guess, if you will. It's a there's accountability there of some kind. But then, what's so horrible is, after that death, how many more have there been?
Right.
And just this wave of violence that has just, gone across this nation. We've seen it in the last month. Persons deciding that they have the right to take people's lives because, they're angry or they don't like them, or, it's horrible. And We have a lot of work to do, and we can't just do the work ourselves. I was telling somebody, I'm saying, as part of the church, we need to hold the church accountable, because I think part of the reason why all of this is happening is because church hadn't stood up. I mean, what has the church said about the people in Buffalo? I mean, as far as holding the nation accountable, holding elected officials accountable, what has it said about the children in Uvalde? What has it said about the people in Tulsa? What has it said about the people in Baltimore? What is it say? Martin Luther King said the only thing that needs to happen for evil to thrive is for good people to do nothing.
To do nothing. To do nothing.
I think that many times, especially when we think about the scripture, I am hard pressed to think that Jesus walked into the temple and told those people, "Please stop what you're doing. Please don't sell stuff in. Don't."
It's in the text.
The text.
Wait a minute. How the folk like to say it's in the word. It's in the word.
It's in the word.
In my sanctified imagination, he cussed and hit.
And we used to say in my home church, it's in the red writing.
Exactly. And my mother always said this. She said, "Crooked head, crooked body." And we had a season of a crooked head.
Yeah.
Sinister head.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you look back over it, we haven't seen this kind of demonstrative activity until we had him.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly empowered and emboldened people in ways that they had not been for decades.
Right. It brought it back.
It really, really did. It really, really did.
I was in Niagara Falls a couple of weeks ago for a vacation. Beautiful time. Returning my rental car, a man cut me off, and interestingly enough, we ended up parking next to each other when we returned our rental cars. And he was just on his phone and laughing. And I said, "Sir, you might want to get off the phone and focus on your driving, because you almost hit me and we could have had a bad accident." He said, "Is this your car?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, then move it and shut up."
Oh my.
I don't want to tell y'all what happened. I reached way back and found myself.
Oh my. Oh my. Yeah.
So he decided it was best for him to run off somewhere.
Yeah.
That kind of attitude and that
mindset
to think
it's a mindset.
Tell somebody,
it's a mindset.
Move it and shut up. I don't know what state you think I'm from, but this is the show me state.
My. I mean, listen, and some are saying that is what some of these movements, some of these more radical groups are pushing for, is a quote unquote race war or what have you. But that's not really what you want.
So let me ask you this then, because you just kind of shifted for us and talked about some of these groups are pushing for race war and others. In the book that you've written, you used the term bastardized versions of Christianity to refer to Christians who started Baptist, Methodist, and Presbyterian churches. Can you explain to us what do you mean by this bastardized versions of Christianity?
Right. Well, the Christianity that was taught to enslaved Africans was not a true Christianity.
Ouch. There we go.
It was not.
Excuse me for a moment while I go.
And it is continued and perpetuated.
Right.
Dr. McLaurin.
Absolutely. Because anytime you can equate the way of Jesus and owning people, those two things don't go together. Marginalizing people, oppressing people, that's not the way of Jesus. And so this kind of I call it a bastardized Christianity because it's not true. It's not true to the way of Jesus. As we say, the founder and perfecter of our faith is not true to his way. It's not true to the way of the Creator. God created everything and everyone to be free. There's nothing and no one God created and said, put them in a cage or put them in chains. And so the only way that slaveholders could justify what they were doing was to say that they were doing it because Blackness was evil. And so you can go back to the Middle Ages, and I talk about this in the book, where some of the European explorers, as they would go to some of these islands, some of these countries on the African continent, different places where the people didn't look like them. And they determined that these people are generally, some, not all, peace-loving, or, if we don't bother them, they're not going to bother us. And so this is a perfect setup for us to go in and capture and control, conquer and control these people. And the way we justify it is we say that they're evil because they come from evil, because the devil is evil and the devil is Black. So you see, it's kind of a linear progression and a justification. So if the devil is evil and the devil is Black, then anything Black then is evil. And so that's how they then decided they were going to call Black and brown people savages, barbarians, uncultured, unlearned, and so forth, and built whole theologies around this anti-Blackness. And these theologies then pervade European society and European religion and religious practices. And so the two biggest strands of denominations that came over once Europeans began to migrate to North America was Congregationalist and Presbyterian. And so Presbyterians and Baptists and others followed a Puritan theology, which was based in anti-Blackness, visible sainthood. So even once they decided to catechize enslaved persons or try to quote unquote Christianize them, because they didn't do that immediately. When they brought enslaved Africans to America, or what would become America, they didn't initially decide to Christianize them. They only did that after some slave revolts happened in the colonies, and slaveholders were killed. So then they said, well, then how do we keep them from rising up and killing us in the middle of the night? Oh, we know we'll Christianize them. We'll introduce them to these tenets. And there were other things they did. That's where you get black codes. That's where you get paddle rollers. That's where the very first police forces came from in this country. Were to watch and keep control of enslaved persons on plantations and on property. And so once they decided that we will Christianize them, Puritan theology said that if you were Black, you could never be a saint. You could become Christian in a sense, but you couldn't be a saint because saints were white.
Listen, y'all, listen.
So the whiter you were, the better chance you had of being a saint or considered someone who would be saved. But what Black folk could do was they could get baptized, washed in the white blood of Jesus, in the white blood now, white blood. You get washed in the white blood of Jesus, so you take on a kind of whiteness. You're not white and you can't be a saint, but you are at least baptized. So you won't go to hell. You won't go to the white folks' heaven, but you won't go to hell. And then the other strand was Anglicanism. So Anglicanism is where all of the Methodist denominations come out of, the Episcopalian, those denominational traditions. And so they also had understandings of anti-Blackness in their theology, and what was called hereditary heathenism. So hereditary heathenism meant that if you were Black, you were born to Black folk, you inherited their heathenism. You were all heathens. Blackness and brownness equated with heathenism.
But the real heathens are not Black and brown. However, we learned and we quoted those slave catechisms, but we never realized that we were underscoring and devaluing our own humanity.
Right.
So how do we regain?
Well, see, one of the ways they did that was to demonize everything Black. So Black skin, Black hair or texture of hair, Black features, big lips, big nose, big ears, big butt.
No, them big ears ain't ours.
Well, I'm saying this was kind of what they put on us. Because all Black folk don't have big noses or big lips either.
Just mess it. Stay on track.
But I'm just saying. So when you are constantly told something and taught something, and you have that thing beaten into you and whipped into you and drilled into you and preached to you consistently over time, it becomes a part of you. Even unwillingly, it becomes a part of you. And so even after emancipation, a lot of Black folk who joined churches or started churches, they took on this same bastardized Christianity, this fake, false Christianity. And sometimes it was in an attempt to make themselves more palatable or palatable to white folk. If we can act like they act, if we can show them that we are as educated, we are as well-to-do or knowledgeable or what have you as they are, they will finally see that we're not savages. They hanged men that had on three-piece suits. They lynched women that had on neck to foot dresses. They lynched children. So say that again.
I said that brings the question: who is really evil? Is it blackness or is it white?
No, it's whiteness, and I'm not equating whiteness with Caucasians or persons of European descent. I'm talking about an ideology.
Right.
Thank you for that, and push that just a little bit more so we can understand that when you say you're talking about whiteness and the ideology,
right,
and how that ideology has permeated, and if I can push you the next step, how that ideology has permeated so many of our Black congregations.
Yeah. Whiteness is a way of thinking. It's an ontology. It's an epistemology. It's a way of being and a way of knowing. That says all things that pertain to Europe, and really is European, because that's where most Caucasoid persons with Caucasoid features, because race is a construct.
Right.
There's no such thing as Black people. There's no such thing as white people. That's a construct that was constructed to divide people. But whiteness says whatever pertains to white folk or persons who can become white. Because see, that's the other thing. When Europeans came to America, they didn't come as white. They came as English. They came as Polish. They came as Austrian. They came as Italian. You know, they came from whatever ethnic and or cultural background they were.
Right.
But what happened was the English settlers who were already here had decided that they needed to set a dividing line between themselves and the persons they enslaved. And so if they are Black or they look Black, or we're going to call them Black, then we must be the opposite of that, which is to them is white. So every ethnic group of Europeans and other folk that came over here that could become white. So how do you become white? Well, first of all, you try to marry light.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Well, I heard once you go Black, you don't go back.
Well, now, but what a lot of men did, they took wives who were much fairer skinned, so their children would be fairer skinned. If they had straight hair, they made sure everybody knew their hair was straight, or if they could make their hair straight. You know, it's a lot of folk that straighten their hair, not just Black people.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Taking on the affectation of whiteness. That's where passing comes from.
Well, the Nigerian actresses are known for whitening their skin.
Yeah.
And it's really horrific because in some places they have whitened so to where they start to suffer like cancer and things.
Yeah, they get disfigured.
It's against the law to sell the product.
But one of the reasons why they do that, and they don't just do it in Africa, they do it in South America and other countries and cultures.
So tell me, what role though has very specifically the Black church played in continuing to propagate this same kind of ideology?
When the Black church has said you have to look a certain way to be a member here.
Oh, okay.
You have to have a certain socioeconomic status.
Silk stocking.
Silk stocking.
Mm-hmm.
And then even paper bag tests. There are churches that have administered paper bag tests.
Lord have mercy. And some
and they might not have held a paper bag up, but they know what color a paper bag is.
Mm-hmm.
Or you must have this particular level of income, if you will, meaning you work at a particular place, or you don't work at another particular place.
Well, most Catholic churches require your W-2 forms.
Yeah, well, a lot of churches have taken on that model, but the Black, and we know there's no monolithic Black church. There's no one Black church, but as an entity that has in some way performed as the crucible of justice and civil rights and what have you. The Black church had its own issue with respectability politics and still does. We still, in a lot of ways, aspire and ascribe to whiteness.
Give us some examples with that. And I want you to know that some of our viewers, I see in there, I don't know if you can see the chat or not. One of our newest viewers, I believe, asked, "Are you kidding?" And then someone says the Black church keeps posting white agendas.
Right.
So what are some of these?
When people come in and their hair's not straightened, sometimes they get the looks. They come in and they don't have on quote unquote church clothes. The men don't have on suits and ties. The women don't have on dresses, or the upper echelon or the designer clothes. They don't speak like folk who've been educated or have had formal education. A lot of times the people in the churches will do what we call the Black pedigree tests. It's so nice. Yeah. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school?
Who are your people?
Yes. Who are you related to? You know people. You're related to people here. And all of those questions are ways of finding out who are you and do you belong. And that's one of the reasons why even before emancipation, but certainly after emancipation, different people joined different churches because they went to the church where they felt most comfortable. My husband talks about all the time how where he grew up, there were 4 churches like within a 3-block radius, Black churches. One was this denomination, that was the hoity-toity negroidy church. One church was on another corner. Those were the folks that kind of were like blue collar workers. There was another church on another corner. Those were the people that they might not have had a job in a while, or they might work, every so often or what have you. Yeah. And people went where they knew they would feel comfortable, where they wouldn't be stared at, where they wouldn't be made to feel like they were out of place. Now, another thing Black churches do to this day is we might not, do the pedigree test. We might not, turn up our nose, but you will never be part of the leadership of this church. You can be here for 40 years and you'll never get on the steward board. You'll never be the president of the Missionary Society. You'll never, be on the staff parish relations committee. You'll never be a delegate to an annual conference. Because you're not our kind of people.
I guess I want to interject this. You say that, and it reminds me now of the late Dr. Zachary Timms when I was in Orlando, and we know prior to his passing, just church packed full of people, and his influence. And so we had all of these other established churches that had been there for a while, but here comes this quote new guy. And they someone finally asked him, one of the pastors who've been in there for a while finally asked him, is that me with feedback?
I guess because I don't hear anything.
Okay. That so one of the pastors finally asked him, how did you get all these people here? How did your church grow so fast? How do you get to the thousands so quickly? And he said, I went to the streets and I went out and I got the people y'all didn't want.
Bingo. Yeah.
So I would ask this question then, with you talking about what you call the whiteness of our churches, then how, because you opened by sharing with us around George Floyd, and then you talked about some other things around social activism, then how can the church authentically speak to social justice issues?
Not if you are complicit in oppression. So any church, including mine, that is not affirming people in their full personhood, we are complicit in oppression. And that's full personhood. That's gender, that's age, that's level of physical ability, that's sexuality, all of it, full personhood.
But we don't accept everybody.
Right, which is why we're not following the way of Jesus.
That's right. That's right. Jesus did not discriminate.
No,
as much,
not at all.
As we do now. So would you talk to us a little bit?
And the one time Jesus did fall into those old habits of trying to discriminate, that woman cracked his face and he had to repent.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did, after calling her a B.
Yeah. Yeah.
She would not let up.
No.
So, and I think we need more Syrophoenician.
Yeah, well, what we we got plenty of Syrophoenicians. What we need are more folk who willing to say, you know what? Yeah, I got some prejudices and I need to deal with them. Because I have to catch myself all the time. I was raised by middle class parents who were wonderful, and they set a certain standard of behavior for me. You're not going to go out of this house looking any kind of way. You're not going to go out of this house wearing anything. You're not going to go out of this house misrepresenting us. And so those mores, M-O-R-E-S, that I took on, when I see somebody with their pants hanging down around their behind, I tend to go, I don't have the right to judge that person. So what? They got pants hanging off, I see a young lady walking around with half her chest hanging out and the rest of her butt hanging out. I struggle with saying, baby, you need to put some clothes on. I can't judge her.
But we contradict much of what we say Christ is about. He says, with loving kindness have I drawn you. He says, whosoever will, let him come. He didn't say, fix your stuff together.
No, because Jesus knew if you wait to fix yourself, you'll never come.
Exactly. And you can't fix it.
Really? You can't. Because what Jesus is concerned about, what God is concerned about, is not the outside. See, that's the crux of it.
Yeah.
The church is concerned about the outside.
Yeah.
But the outside is not what's going to save you. It's the inside. Which is why Jesus told the Pharisees, "Oh, you're so wonderful. You're just so beautiful. You look with your you look like whitewashed tombs. Oh, you're so beautiful on the outside and full of filth and dead men's bones on the inside."
And I think he also told you so spiritually minded,
Listen here. So that's the part of the struggle, and Evelyn Higginbotham, who coined the term respectability politics, talks about that in one of her books, or maybe more than one. But what we get caught up on has nothing to do with spirituality. I think someone put that in the chat, that they were told they went to a church and they said this is a silk stocking church. Without even getting to know who she was. And that's a lot of times what we do. We judge folk on the outside appearance. And it's not just dress, it's manner of speech. It's a lot of things. But none of those things. Go ahead, Doc.
I think we all have some prejudices.
We do.
I think you are hitting something where that self-awareness and even being aware of our own prejudices and privileges.
Yeah, absolutely.
We come with privileges based on our level of education.
Absolutely.
Where we grew up.
Whether we came from a 2-parent household.
That's right.
Yeah.
And those are the people, 2-parent households, education. Those are the people that the church seems to promote.
Absolutely.
As long as you're not female, they'll promote.
Well, I mean, yeah, but if you're gonna get promoted as a woman, you better have all of those ducks in a row.
Yes. And then some.
And then some. So we're still struggling with what we look like. Right. And that's a legacy of enslavement. Now, we can't just say, well, that came to us from slavery and we ain't gonna never get rid of it. No, we can. You just got to be willing to do the work. Like I say, I have to question myself. I have to struggle. I have to wrestle and say, no, Lisa, now you looking at that person, that what you just felt, or that what you just kind of hit you, that's a product of your growing up. That's not Christ. That's not Jesus. That's your own stuff.
That's right. And it's only when we question and reflect upon what we're working with, can we improve the church? Can we make the church open for all?
Absolutely.
Even our Creator never said that man ought to be to dominate another man. The creation story is about domination of animals that were the creatures, the crawlers,
and even that translation is harmful because it's really stewardship.
Yes.
It's not domination.
Yes.
Right.
Part of the reason our earth is in the shape it's in is because we've taken on that understanding of we're supposed to dominate the earth, and then when we get ready to build a neighborhood, cut down every tree in sight so we can stick the houses 3 inches apart.
Right.
And then nobody in the neighborhood can breathe because there are no trees.
That's right.
So yeah, I mean, and I see one of my former students on here, Katoya McCaskill, and she said, I would love to hear this in an intergenerational setting. Millennial church looks like community, but inside our traditional or non-traditional mores. And I know one of the questions you had posed to me, Dr. Wallace, was what can we do to get young people, because it may have been you, Dr. Bradford, what we're doing is not working.
Right.
But what we've got to understand is millennials, Generation Y, they're not interested in church. They're not interested in these boxes we check off every week. They give less than a care about that. What they care about is their spirituality. Mm-hmm. What they care about is their emotional, mental, physical, spiritual well-being. What they care about is, am I living into the purpose? And do I even know the purpose for which God has called me here? And who am I helping? Now, you want to get some children and some youth excited, do some mission projects. They love that. They love that because it's a concrete way that they can say, I'm helping somebody. So if we can tie that into understanding that it's not about doing charity work, but it's about living into the mandate of loving your neighbor.
That sounds like Matthew 25 to me.
Listen here, and it is.
You mean that's it? You mean that's in the Bible?
It's right there in the red writing. I tell people all the time, I said, y'all got some interesting ideas about how folks gonna get to heaven. I said, because the Bible says, Jesus says in this parable about the sheep and the goats, it's not about who gave the most money. Now, that's not to say you're not supposed to give. They didn't say it's not about who here every time the door swing open, although, yes, you should come and participate in worship in your church. It's not about who was on this board and that board and what have you. Jesus said that when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. When I was sick and in prison, you came to see about me.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus, we ain't never seen you like that. When you did it to the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. And but see, now, let me say this. Now, I'm finna show them, make some folk mad now.
Go ahead. Knock yourself out.
A lot of times preachers don't preach that because folk that don't shout to folk.
Hold on, I'm going to moan a little bit.
Silence says a lot. That's right.
that don't shout them like your breakthrough is coming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That don't shout them like it's your winning season.
Mm-hmm.
That don't shout them like, God, whatever you doing in this season, don't do without me. Y'all better stop singing that, because God might be releasing death angels in the land. You better get somewhere out the way and let God do what God does.
Saying anything. Lord, give me a real lyric, please.
Listen here.
I'm
sorry,
Dr.
go ahead, Go ahead.
We're closing to our time, but you mentioned something earlier, and Dr. Wallace brought it up in reiterating part of that about acknowledging what our isms might be, or that we do have some isms. I know one of the things, one of the initiatives that one of the individuals that leads a ministry in my church works with, it's been with what we call this white congregation, parent of folk, but getting them to speak, and being transparent that they do have some prejudices or isms. Now, it seems as though, and I'm going to say this just generally speaking, that if we say, okay, we want to go to this white congregation and we want them to admit that they got isms, racism, right? Mm-hmm. That they prejudice around stuff. Okay, we'll do that, right? Mm-hmm. And not to negate the necessity of that. Mm-hmm. But what have you found in regard to the church, the Black church, and its willingness to be honest about its own isms or are there conversations, or are there ways that they've used, quote, the gospel or Paul to shut those conversations down?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, let me say, saving white folk is not my project.
They got to do their own work.
Do your own work. Oh my God, they went off the screen.
They got to do their own work. Yes. And I should not be the one teaching them. They need to be teaching themselves.
There are enough books, magazines, pamphlets.
Absolutely.
That you do your own reading. And it's enough out there. Start with the 1619 Project. That ought to keep you busy for a couple of years.
Absolutely.
But there are so many resources out there. Saving you is not my project. Educating you is not my project. I mean, if you ask me a direct question, I will answer it, but I will also tell you, here are some other places you can go and find this
resource.
And read for yourself and learn for yourself.
The issue, though, Dr. McLaurin, is that we don't evaluate ourselves.
When you think you all right, when you don't think there's anything wrong with you, why I got to evaluate? I'm good. But you got to be able to say, and so I'm getting to the other part of your question, Dr. Burns, about the Black church. You got to be willing to say we got some issues and we need to address those. We have some issues around respectability politics. We have some issues around gender and sexuality. We have some issues around age requirements for leadership. We have some issues around, family, we want our family to do everything. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of our churches, people think that every Black church is a mega church. That's a lie. 90% of Black churches and churches, period, are less than 300 people. So, and most of them are less than 100 people.
Right.
And a lot of churches are comprised of family members because that's how they started. They started in communities. They started with families. And a lot of times the church gets bogged down and can't grow because if somebody comes in who's not a part of the family or the approved group, they can have all kind of gifts and all kind of, stuff. But we don't want to, we're not going to invite them in. We're not going to let them in. But we've got to be willing to face our own issues.
Right. Looking at the person in the mirror.
Yeah, we got to be willing to face our own issues and say, and we got to listen to young people. And conversely, young people got to be ready to listen to elders too. But we need to be able to listen to each other and say, you have something of import that we need to hear. We have something of import that you need to hear. And we all need to share it in love and as a way of edifying the body.
That's it.
Not for power, not for control, but because we want this to be better.
Awesome.
This is awesome. I mean,
let me say one other thing about that. But one of the first things the Black church has got to face about itself is based on some very problematic theological tenets in a lot of ways. Because we still singing, a whole lot of churches still singing, "Wash me whiter than snow."
That's right.
We still think women are evil. Yeah.
Jezebels, yes.
Yeah, with Jezebels. Yeah. We and that patriarchy, that ingrained misogyny and cis heteronormative, way of thinking. We got to come to terms with that.
Yeah. So Dr. McLaurin, you were saying earlier, and it made me think on this, and because one thing to continue to hear just across the board, young people not wanting to come to church, right? And so, based on what you're saying, especially with the smaller churches, people not necessarily coming in, families, the interview process, that we put people through. I was thinking about how we've had a lot of quote black flight to white congregations, mega churches, right? And then Trump came, right? I can't believe I said his name. Forgive me, Lord. 45 came, right? And that in 45 coming, we saw this shift of preaching among the evangelicals, right? And so where many young people in trying to find a safe place, leaving the black church, right? They went there. And now, blinders come off in regard to that. Do we not hold some kind of accountability, should we not acknowledge that the reason there perhaps is this gap in age in our churches is because when they came to us, we didn't welcome them. They still tried to stay in church, right? Because they're doing missions, they had these things, but then they find out that their personhood wasn't welcome, but their personhood isn't welcome at the black church. So where do they go? Do we not own some responsibility in this?
Absolutely. You can't know a thing generally until you're taught a thing. So
okay.
When children are small, we should be teaching them, certainly in churches and Sunday schools, the tenets of the faith, teaching them about the church that they are part of, teaching them what it means to be a Christian and a disciple and a member. And also investing in them. So what does it mean to invest in a child? It means you don't just trot them out when you want to put them on display for Fifth Sunday or, the Black History program or whatever. You make them an integral part of the church. So every Sunday, there are children and youth doing something.
Yes.
Every week, there are children doing something. Now, with that said, that means parents bear a responsibility, or guardians, or whoever's supposed to be bringing them. You have a responsibility to bring them and to help. My mother didn't just bring me to church. She also served as one of the children's directors, one of the youth directors. She was going to be right there.
But live something at home too. Don't just bring me to church or send me to church.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You gotta invest. So parents have to bring them, the church has to invest in them, and then teach them that we're investing in you because we want to see you continue on in this church. We want to see you continue on through leadership. And many of them, because I see the comments in the chat, yeah, many of them, particularly once they go to college, they may leave for a time, but the church does not leave them. That need to be a part of communal spirituality, communal worship, communal gathering doesn't leave them. So they may or may not come back to their home church, but you have planted the seeds in them so that they don't leave the church totally. But now part of the issue, particularly with these young folk now who have access to so much information, many of them feel like the people in the church are not, they're not being authentic.
They're not real.
They're not real.
That's it.
And so you got to be willing, which is where the Black church struggles, because Black people struggle here, and that's with vulnerability.
Yes.
So apply that to PKs. So you have children in the church, their parents are leaders. They know how their parents live at home. They know what their parents stand for. They love their parents, and then have to come to church and deal with y'all.
Yeah, well, my younger daughter is a perfect example of that. She has said, I don't really, I didn't enjoy some of the churches you served, not just as pastor, but as worship pastor, musician. She said the people weren't kind to you, and they weren't kind to us. Mm-hmm. She said, yeah, they might have smiled at us, but I could kind of tell they didn't, it was fake. They didn't really mean it. And so I've been talking to her, and I've had to talk with her and tell her, but you go other places where people are disingenuous, but you don't let that stop you from going.
What'd you say?
It's disingenuous folk at the grocery store, but you go get your groceries. It's disingenuous folk at the bank, but you still go get your money. It's disingenuous folk at the club, but you still go get your party on. Mm-hmm. Likewise, the church, you need to go to get the undergirding for your life that you need. Yes, it's a communal atmosphere, but you don't have to take all of that on with you. And so now she's been going to church online because where she is, she's moved away and has a job in another state. There's not a church yet that she's identified that she said, I want to go in person, but she's going online. So, I'm thankful. My older daughter, she's a church girl, anytime, she's like, we going to church, let's roll, but I had to teach them all the way through that, I go to church to have an encounter with the holy. Now, I also want a fellowship and I want to see people, but no matter how somebody treats me, that doesn't hamper me from getting this over here.
Dr. McLaurin, and we went a little bit over, but we are going to close. But I'd like to throw perhaps this out at you as a full circle, that in your sharing about your daughter and them saying they're being disingenuous and perhaps we still go other places, but I guess part of me would contend, and I'd like to hear from you and any other closing thoughts you might have, that in the Black church, being disingenuous is related back to what we were talking about up front. Is that what we have embraced as, quote, Christianity is not genuine to who we are anyway. And so so as long as we continue to perpetuate and replicate that which we have been catechized with, then we will always be disingenuous And those who are young and experience that, that is what they will see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, what are your thoughts, I guess, around that, or any other closing thoughts you might have?
Well,
Just kind of
I would say it's going to take, I think, a time for the church to come to terms with our history and how that has affected us through the ages.
Absolutely.
And we're going to have some real conversations and practice some vulnerability with our, see, part of the issue our young people have with us is we try to, grown folk in the church generally, we try to act like we're perfect, or we try to put that out there that we never did a wrong thing, we never said a wrong thing, we never had, and they know that's not true because they live with us. And so we're going to have to become, we're going to have to wrestle with the ability to kind of put, and I'm not saying bleed all over folk and tell them everything that ever happened to you, but I'm saying begin to really look at the writing and the research on the history of Black liturgy and Black Christianity and where this comes from, and the things that we took from slavery, slaveholders, that we still carry today that is not healthful and helpful for us and for our communities. And then help our young people understand and say to them, we have done a disservice in some ways because we have perpetuated and replicated these things. So we need to work together to figure out how to reclaim our African roots, our African understandings of kinship and cosmology, African theologies of wholeness, where there's no separation between sacred and secular. So we're not just looking at young folks shaking our head going, but actually helping them by saying, I went through some of the same things. I've experienced some of the same things. I've seen this before. Let me help you. Let me tell you, kind of where this can go, or where this went for me, or, what have you. But it's that authenticity piece that we're missing. It's that authenticity. And part of that is the church is going to have to, the Black church, first of all, we're going to have to stop being ashamed of being Black. We're going to have to acknowledge our histories, all of it, good and bad, helpful and problematic, and then begin to deal with how do we use the good in helping us to move forward in authenticity, because young people are not going to have anything to do with you if you're not authentic. That's why the Black Lives Matter movement and these other movements, they didn't come out of the church, because those young people said they didn't want us in the church because we were gay, because we were trans, because we, were more radical than they were, because we didn't, believe what they believed.
My daughter told me that there was a pastor's code, which I wasn't quite aware of. However, we were in an anniversary service, and she said to a pastor friend of ours, she said, "Don't worry," she's Pastor Irvin, "because you have the pastor's code." And I looked at her and I thought, what is the pastor's code?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Mommy, if something happens to you or Daddy, we know who to call and who not to call."
Yeah.
So we have our pick as to who we will call to inform them. We need prayer. There's a situation, there's a circumstance. Then we have another group over here. We wouldn't call them if our souls depended on it.
Yeah. Right. Right. Which is sad that it is that way, but again, what did Langston Hughes say? We wear the mask that grins and lies, that hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we play the human guile, with torn and bleeding hearts, we smile.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We got to share that pain.
Yeah.
As well as the joy.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Triumphs and tragedies.
Yeah. Dr. McLaurin, thank you so much. Do you have your book close to you? Hold it up.
I do.
Okay. And so if you, Womanist, Theology of Worship, Womanist. Yeah.
A Womanist. A Womanist.
Theology of Worship. A Womanist Theology of Worship. And so if
it
you're
will
not
bless
already
you.
ordered,
it will bless you. I promise you. It will bless you. It really will.
I say.
And amen.
Thank you so much for being with us. Hang around for us backstage just one moment.
Thank you all. Love y'all.
Close out. Well, ladies, it has been a tremendous, tremendous season for us, our viewing audience. Again, we thank you. This is our final show until the Lord says differently, and until August. I believe we do have our guest that is slated for us in August. But we do ask again that you all keep us in mind, keep this time slot open as we take a few weeks of summer break. All right. And so, any closing words from each of you, our co-hosts, before we sign off for this season that God has allowed us to continue?
Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We love you all, and we look forward to seeing you real soon with our new bishop.
I receive it.
Yeah, I say. Yes, we really want to thank the audience for being with us and continuing each and every week to show up and to ask questions and to be engaged. So I'm just grateful for everyone that comes week after week and they bring their questions, they bring their comments. Thank you so much. And we look forward to being with you in August. Are you muted?
You're on mute. Are you muted?
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Me?
No, Bradford.
Bradford, you're muted.
Well, now you're muted. Now it says you're on mute.
Okay.
There you are. There you are.
I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's my Bluetooth, but I am so grateful for the opportunity to share with you each week. Yes, for a few weeks, we're going to be away. So come on back with us. Same time, same space with our new bishop. We are excited about what God is going to do and what God is doing. Our sisters loving each other.
Yes.
Uplifting each other and strengthening each other. And we ask that all of you do the same, because it's not easy out here as women in clergy. So let us do that for each other as we move forward in God.
Amen.
Come on back in August 2nd. And our guest will be none other than the Reverend Dr. Janetta Hatcher. We'll see you same time, same place, August 2nd.
Have a wonderful summer. God bless.
God bless.